for the evening rush hour under partly cloudy skies, and we're going to be in for some mild weather for the next couple of days. Temperatures in the 40s. Very nice.
That sounds great. Thanks, Brad. And that's the news and weather as of 7 o'clock.
We'll be back with more news at 7:25.
This is 5 TV.
From Staten Island, New York. Good morning, America.
Oh, good morning, Matt.
Yes, and good morning, everyone. I'm Joan Lunden. It's Tuesday, January 27th.
And I'm Charlie Gibson, once again sitting in for David Hartman, who is off this week. A lot going on since we went to sleep last night. A lot in the news. In the Philippines overnight, what Corazon Aquino herself has called a coup attempt has taken place. Rebellious soldiers moved on a number of sites. That story coming up in the news. And Gorbachev has given an extraordinary speech in the Soviet Union. Bill O'Reilly with details on those stories in a few moments.
Coming up in this half hour, we are going to be talking about tonight's State of the Union speech, a speech many say will be the most important of President Reagan's administration. What can we expect in tonight's address? What must President Reagan accomplish? We will ask William Rusher of the National Review, Fred Barnes of the New Republic, and Sam Donaldson, ABC News White House correspondent. We'll also get some reaction from people all around the country.
And we're going to the movies again this morning. We're going to talk about Platoon, a movie that many people have seen. A lot of people are talking about it. It has had a tremendous response among veterans of the Vietnam War, and we're going to try to find out why this morning. We'll also begin our examination of the Challenger tragedy 1 year after it happened. We'll be talking about that today and tomorrow as well.
Right now, though, it is 1 minute after, and Bill O'Reilly has the news for us. Bill, good morning.
Good morning, Joan. Good morning, Charlie.
Hey, Bill.
And good morning, everybody. Rebel forces in the Philippines continue to hold out on one front of a coup attempt. Forces loyal to former President Marcos seized and then lost 2 air bases. But as Jim Laurie reports, they continue to hold an independent television station.
The focus of the Aquino government's effort to put down the military rebellion was on one of Manila's 5 TV stations. About 100 rebel soldiers had seized the station. Government troops quickly surrounded it. A stalemate went on for much of the day. President Aquino appeared on television to call on the soldiers to surrender.
The rebels are strongly urged to surrender. Their situation is hopeless.
Complicating the effort to retake Channel 7 was the fact there were several thousand onlookers, some pro-Marcos, some pro-Aquino, and police had to tackle them first. Hundreds of Marcos loyalists turned out to support the troops inside the TV station. Several times during the day, Marcos and Aquino supporters showered each other with rocks. Military police used water cannon. Elsewhere, Aquino military moved to put down 2 other Marcos loyalist actions. 52 soldiers were rounded up after a group of some 70 tried to take over a helicopter field near Manila Airport. In a brief firefight, the attack was foiled with 1 rebel killed, 16 wounded. And finally, 20 miles south of Manila, a 3rd installation was attacked, government troops eventually getting the upper hand. The military rebellion was the most serious attempt to destabilize the Aquino government in the nearly 1 year she's been in power. Jim Laurie, ABC News, Manila.
We have a late-breaking story unfolding right now. The Archbishop of Canterbury is giving a news conference on the subject of negotiator Terry Waite. Charles Glass is standing by now, live in London. Charles, what's going on?
Bill, Archbishop Runcie, the Archbishop of Canterbury, has just given a statement only moments ago at Lambeth Palace. In the statement, he said that the church is concerned about Terry Waite's safety and that it's had no direct word from Waite since he disappeared a week ago today. However, he said that they have encouraging reports from contacts that they trust in Beirut that Waite is still negotiating with the kidnappers for the release of Americans Terry Anderson and Thomas Sutherland. He says they're also hearing indirectly from the captors of Anderson and Sutherland that Waite is still with them, still negotiating, and that he is fine. He felt that the Islamic leaders in whose care Waite was entrusted had given the church promises, and that so far they're keeping those promises.
Charles, what kind of communications are we talking about in Beirut? Are they in telephone contact with one another? How do they get messages back and forth?
Well, what they're doing now is the church spokeswoman, Eve Keatley, is speaking on the telephone daily to Druze Muslim contacts. The Druze are responsible for Terry Waite's security, although Waite is now with the Shiite Muslims who are holding the Americans, Terry Anderson and Thomas Sutherland. So So she speaks daily to the Druze who are in contact, we believe, or the church believes, with the kidnappers.
Okay, Charles, thank you very much. Charles Glass reporting live from London. Well, in other news today, President Reagan says Americans who decide to stay in Lebanon do so at their own risk, and that there is little the U.S. can do to free hostages. The president delivers his State of the Union message tonight, and ABC will broadcast the speech live beginning at 9 o'clock Eastern Time. Meantime, 2 former hostages from TWA Flight 847 have identified a prisoner in West Germany as one of the hijackers. He is believed to be Mohammed Ali Hamadi, the man held in Frankfurt, and former hostages Raymond Johnson and Peter Hill have identified him as one of the hijackers. In other news, Soviet leader Gorbachev today called for sweeping reforms of the Soviet electoral system. In Moscow, Gorbachev proposed allowing more than one candidate to run for top political posts and the use of secret ballots by communist leaders. Back home, a prison riot broke out overnight at the Western Penitentiary in Pittsburgh. Police say prisoners clashed with guards and set fires to the Pittsburgh facility. Witnesses report hearing shots, but there are no reports of shooting injuries. And the U.S. and Europe may be able to avert a trade war. Stephen Ogg has details in this morning's economic report.
Good morning. Both sides in the U.S.-European community trade crisis say they may be on the verge of a breakthrough to avoid what could become an all-out trade war. Later today, the Deputy U.S. Trade Ambassador, Alan Woods, is to talk by telephone with his counterpart in Europe, Leslie Fielding. And depending on the outcome of those discussions, U.S. Trade Ambassador Clayton Yiter could be on the telephone with the chief European negotiator, Willie de Klerk, tomorrow morning. Unless these last-ditch talks provide a solution, the United States imposes import taxes that could raise consumer prices by 150% on a variety of imported luxury foods. This because of a $400 million cutback in European imports of American grain. On Wall Street, prices opened against a mixed market yesterday. The Dow rose almost 6 points, but losers outnumbered winners. And a potential merger? General Cinema, the big theater and soft drink chain, says it's bought 8.3% of Cadbury Schweppes, the big British soft drink and candy concern. General Cinema may buy up to 25% for the time being. And more fourth quarter profits. In the oil industry, they're mostly down. Exxon, Arco, Amoco profit declines well in the double digits because the year-end increase in crude oil prices came too late. But at Black & Decker, the tool and appliance company, profits rose 7%. The company was especially pleased with results from some of its appliances. Sales of irons continue to press ahead. Cordless vacuums picking up nicely. The economy this morning.
Continuing with economics, the dollar is falling again against major foreign currencies. The dollar is down against the Japanese yen. In Europe, the dollar is down against the West German mark, the French franc, and the British pound. In London, morning gold fixing was down $2.40 an ounce from yesterday's close in New York. Taking a look ahead at some of the events coming up on today's news calendar, Secretary of State George Shultz testifies before the Senate Foreign Relations Committee on the Iran-Contra affair. African National Congress President Oliver Tambo of South Africa meets with the Congressional Black Caucus today. The New York Giants celebrate their Super Bowl victory today with a party in Giant Stadium. Some 77,000 of the Giants' closest friends will be on hand. And this evening on World News Tonight with Peter Jennings, 7 correspondents look at the State of the Union before President Reagan's address tonight on Capitol Hill. That is the news at 7. Coming up at 7:30, there's no snow end to the bad weather as the Northeast digs out, from under another snowstorm. Water, Spencer and Charlie, water here, please.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, it's all coming through my ceilings back at home. It's melting right through. I don't want to be parochial. I know you have to worry about the weather all across the country. But when's it going to warm up?
Well, here, there appears to be a little bit of a shift in the weather patterns right now, and things should start moderating here. Not warming up, but moderating by the end of the week, which means some melting could take place, and the snow will be gone, we hope. And from your roof to your basement. So here's what's happening right now as I stroll over to the old jet stream map. Right now there's still that sharp dip here in the east, so cold air is still spilling down into this region, but a few days ago the dip was more back this way, so it'll be moderating here in a couple of days. Still cold in the east today, very nice here in the southwest and the central plains. That's your nicest weather today, and stormy up in the northwest corner of the nation where that flow off the Pacific is still coming in, bringing in moisture, and winds are kicking them out there, and so is precipitation. It's going to be a wet day here today. today along coastal California, Northern California, and Oregon. There could be some flooding. Heavy rain also over coastal areas of Washington State. It's going to be very windy out here. Fog this morning over Northern California. And although it's clear and pleasant here in most of the central and southwestern parts of the country, strong winds gusting up to about 100 miles per hour over the eastern foothills of the Colorado Rockies. Meanwhile, things are looking pretty good in the east. That's a quick look at the national weather picture, and here's what's happening in your hometown area.
Good morning, everyone. This is Brad Edwards from the 5 TV Forecast Center, and our extraordinary winter weather will continue today. It's going to be partly cloudy and mild. We'll have a high of 40 degrees and northwest winds 10 to 20 miles per hour.
And we'll have more on the weather in the next half hour. Joan?
All right, thank you, Spencer. Right now it is 9 minutes after. Tonight, President Reagan will report to a joint session of Congress on the State of the Union. We sent our cameras out to talk to Americans all around the country on the streets of New York, Detroit, and Los Angeles. And we asked, what should President Reagan say in his speech?
I want to hear him tell the truth about the arms scandal. And the sooner he comes out and talks about it, the sooner the people in the United States will respect him or try to get some of his respect back.
I think he should take a very hard stand on terrorism.
He's making these arm deals with some different countries. A lot of people in the street are hungry.
Well, I think he should be handling the poverty question in the United States. I mean, that's terrible.
I'm worried about my own job. I work for General Motors, and our plants are closing a lot here in the Midwest. I think he should clean up the Iran arms scandal. I really want him to come clean. I want him to tell the truth, get everything out in the open, and instill trust back in the public.
Great emphasis should be placed on continued negotiations with the Soviets and attempts to bring about some sort of arms agreement in the next year.
Something about the economy and the deficit. It's appalling.
I want to hear him make some kind of stand about civil rights and racism in this country. I want to hear him confess his sins for his knowledge about the Iran affair, as well as his knowledge about funds being funneled to the Contras. I think the country needs to get away from that and get on to other things.
And I think he should definitely talk about abortion, the drug issue, and which is contributing to the downfall of society.
I think Ronald Reagan should really be seriously considering his retirement.
The Iranian situation, with total honesty, even if it hurts him, I hope he has the guts to do it.
And right now, at 11 minutes after, we are going to be back with Sam Donaldson, William Rusher of the National Review, and Fred Barnes of the New Republic. Their look at the president's speech right after this.
Everybody who loves waltzes, here is the famous orchestra whose waltz records became giant hits all over America. Their beautiful waltzes like this helped sell over 100 million records. And now, here are the waltz favorites of the beloved Guy Lombardo Orchestra. Was the most requested of all the Guy Lombardo songs. The smooth and mellow sound of Guy Lombardo's waltzes has never been equaled. All these waltz favorites are in this album, but you also get another entire album of Guy Lombardo waltz favorites. Waltzes so beautiful, you'll play them over and over again. How you love this treasury of Guy Lombardo waltz favorites. But remember, you also get album number 1. You get them both in this limited offer. Be sure to order now.
Mail 1298 to Guy Lombardo, Box 10422, Des Moines 50306. You get 2 records, 2 cassettes, or 2 8-track tapes. This beautiful Guy Lombardo waltz offer will end with no advance notice. Write this address down now. Mail 1298 to Guy Lombardo, Box 10422, Des Moines 50306. Guy Lombardo, Box 10422, Des Moines, Iowa 50306. 15 minutes after the hour now. President Reagan will go before Congress tonight to give his 6th State of the Union address, hoping to recoup from what White House aide called the worst 60 days of his presidency. Joining us this morning from Washington are Sam Donaldson, the ABC News White House correspondent, and Fred Barnes, senior editor of the New Republic magazine. And with me here in New York is William Rusher. He's publisher of the National Review. Good morning to all of you. Let me start with a question for all three. Again, Sam, I'll start with you. Arguably, this is the most important speech the president has ever given. I think Richard Worthlin, his pollster, called it a seminal event in his presidency the other day. Do you think that's right? Is it the most important speech he's ever given?
Well, it's certainly one of the most important because, Charlie, nothing else matters in this speech after the Iran thing if he doesn't handle the Iran thing correctly. I think a lot of people are waiting for him to say, I made a mistake. I didn't have any ill meaning. My heart got in the way of my head. I won't do it again. I'm going to mind the store. And I think after that, if he can do that, then the rest of the speech may have a meaning.
Fred, do you agree? Everything depends on what he says about Iran?
I think State of the Unions are the ultimate forgettable speeches. I've covered a lot of them, about 15 of them. I remember one. That was the one in which Gerald Ford said the State of the Union was not good. Reagan has given many more important speeches than this. The Star Wars speech, his first inaugural address, the Evil Empire speech. What he needs to do in this is just come and show that he's vibrant, that he can speak well, that he's healed from his surgery, and that he plans to go on with some kind of an agenda. The atmospherics are more important than the substance.
All right, two different viewpoints there, and we'll come back to you about that. Mr. Rusher, what do you think?
I tend to agree with Fred on that. I think that we're in the preliminary stage of media hype at the moment. And Mr. Reagan's critics, actually, are building it up. As one of your people you interviewed said, is he going to confess his sins? And no matter what he does tonight, no matter how good he is, he can speak like Demosthenes, he can give the second Gettysburg Address, it won't matter. Tomorrow morning, Speaker Wright and Majority Leader Byrd and their friends in the media, and maybe a tame Republican like Senator Cohen, will be on television saying, oh, he blew it. It's too bad. He didn't say he made a mistake. He didn't cringe in front of the American people as we thought he should.
You're saying you don't think he'll say what Sam outlined?
No, I don't think he will. I don't think he should, what's more. I think that's the solid road to desuetude.
Fred, if he doesn't deal with Iran, though, isn't he faced with more carping about the subject, more daily revelations, and eventually more erosion of his personal support?
Well, look, I mean, he's going to be faced with Iran all year anyway. We've got the two investigations in the House and the Senate. You've got the special prosecutor. So Iran has been set in motion. The scandal is going to be investigated all year. There's nothing he can say in a speech in the State of the Union that's going to make that go away. So I think the idea of the White House is that he should touch on it some, but not dwell on it, and move on to other things. That makes sense to me.
But you say the Sam, let me bring you back to Mr. Rusher's point about he shouldn't say it, doesn't have to say it, and even if he did say it, everybody's going to carp at him.
Well, he doesn't have to say anything he doesn't want to say, of course. But the problem is this administration has worked for 6 years on atmospherics. Ronald Reagan gets out in front of a television camera, the red light goes on, he is terrific. But this time, there's a lot of people, I think, who want something more than that. They want to find out really what his role was in this Iranian arms scandal. Did he authorize the first shipment? Why was he doing it? Wasn't he really trading arms for hostages? Until the president can come to grips honestly with that and look the American people in the eye and say, here was my role, here's what I was doing, I did make a mistake, but I'm not going to repeat it, I think that wellspring of goodwill toward him that we know is out there is going to be behind the dam, a dam of disbelief. He needs to break that dam to get back the trust that he once had.
Mr. Rusher?
Of course, Sam manages to suggest that for 6 years Ronald Reagan's been going on hot air, and now he's got to get down to brass tacks. That doesn't happen to be the case. I think he has gotten down to brass tacks. I think he's had a wonderful 6 years. And I think we're going to hear more requests of Congress this time on SDI, on aid to the Contras, on free trade, on all sorts of issues as to which he would be blocked by the Congress. This is going to be the real meat and potatoes. Sam wants to get into the nitty-gritty and hear him say that he was wrong and he made a mistake and he's sorry and he'll never do it again. That isn't what the American people in their majorities, I think, want to expect or believe.
Well, I'm not sure I agree, because the polls would indicate that there has been a significant erosion of confidence in the president based around the Iran issue.
And this morning's New York Times, I was reading in your green room, indicates that confidence in him is already up above 50% again. Even 42% of the liberals in the country had confidence in him. Now, that's quite a score, you know. He's in the seventh year of his term. Very few presidents have ever had that high confidence. Now, Iran most certainly hasn't helped. But the idea that we are in some sort of last days here and that he can only save himself by some confession of sin is a lot of nonsense.
Fred, is it an impossible task that we're talking about for the president to put Iran behind him in one speech?
Oh, of course it is. You can't put anything behind you in one speech. So I don't think he's even going to try to do that. He's going to try to touch on some new agenda. He's not going to do the things that Sam wants him to do. That's what the press in Washington wants him to do. Reagan has answered most of the questions about Iran so far. There are some he needs to answer, but basically there are not a lot of new revelations that are coming out that are sending this story along. We've had two revelations. One, that there was an arms deal. That was leaked by the Iranians. And secondly, Ed Meese told us a couple months ago that some money was diverted to the Nicaraguan Contras. The press hasn't done such a great job in turning up revelations other than that. There really haven't been any. And one thing we know for sure is that the public's interest in this scandal is eroding very rapidly.
Fred, the president hasn't answered questions in Iran since the 19th day of November. He has gone to ground, he has hidden from the American public, and of course from the press.
But they put out lots of information. They put out the finding that was issued in January.
They put out some of the information. Right ahead of the sort of the woodsman, they felled one tree and said, "This is it." But when you say, "What are the other trees?" Well, they're still hidden.
You don't think this stuff's going to come out in all the investigations that are going on, the Senate hearings, the House hearings, the special prosecutor?
He ought to get it behind him as quickly as possible.
But there's no way.
Drain out and hemorrhage all year long.
Because there's no way to get him. There's no way to get it behind him with all these investigations and hearings going on. They're going to go on no matter what it says.
The American people who'll get it behind him.
Let me interrupt and bring the show back to New York for just a second. And let me put a proposition, Mr. Rush, in front of you. And that is that as far as the public is concerned, the damage has already been done to the president. He ran back in 1980 on a platform that he's going to restore American confidence, that he's not going to let any two-bit Ayatollah push us around. And once the public found out that he'd been dealing with that man for the past 15 months, that the damage was done in the public mind and that there's no recovering from that.
I don't think so. I think that there was a lot of incredulity that we were dealing with Iran and with the government there, but I think there was a reason for it. I think that the future of Iran there in the Persian Gulf and whether or not it goes into the Soviet orbit is one of the most important geopolitical questions facing the American government. I think it was the highest statesmanship of Ronald Reagan to address that question. Now, the press and the opposition has been very busy trying to telescope all this into a deal of arms for hostages. It never was that, and I will be here just as long as you want me to saying that it isn't that. It never was that, and that the propaganda effort to prove that it was that is what is creating the confusion. I think that the American people are coming to understand that this was an important geopolitical initiative that, as Admiral Poindexter said in that memorandum that the Democrats tried their best to suppress, the January 17th memorandum of last year, the hostage issue was really essentially a byproduct of the geopolitical approach.
Fred, is there any surprise that the president could bring out tonight that might divert attention from Iran, maybe end run the issue?
Well, in the first place, you can't divert attention from Iran. It's a scandal, it's a legitimate scandal, and it's hurt Reagan a lot, and I agree with you that he cannot recover fully. He can point to heroes in the audience, as he often does, and he can touch on a new agenda. But the fact is, Reagan has been successful with his real agenda. He's gotten a tax cut, a military buildup, a little domestic spending cut. That was his agenda. That's what he came to town to do, and so there's not that much left.
He's doubled the national debt. He has the largest deficits in our history. He has no arms control agreement with the Soviets after 6 years of trying. His presidency hangs in the balance. The last 2 years of what he does with the Soviets, with the economy, with the national agenda is what historians will remember, not the tax cut of 1981.
We're out of time. Gentlemen, all three, thank you for being with us. Sam Donaldson, Fred Barnes, William Rusher, you're nice to be with us this morning. We'll all watch tonight, and we'll be back.
Can't find a better place than The Choice All-You-Care-to-Eat Smorgasbord. A bountiful soup and salad bar, large variety of entrees, open flame broiler with barbecued ribs, evenings and Sundays. There's even shish kebabs and royal roast baron of beef. Now The Choice introduces for lunch and dinner Oriental stir-fry shrimp, a delicious blend of shrimp and crisp vegetables stir-fried on the grill. All this under $4 for lunch, under $5 for dinner. Try The Choice All-You-Care-to-Eat Smorgasbord. 1801 22nd Street.
Where do you go for mobility equipment? Ostomy supplies, respiratory products, exercise equipment. Where do you go? To the name you know, Hammer. For all your home health care needs, it's Hammer Medical Supply. And Hammer bills Medicare and insurance companies for you, too. Hammer Medical Supply, your complete home health care headquarters. Hammer, Des Moines, Newton, and Oskaloosa.
Get up. Safety belt test at 9. Hurry.
Not another windshield taste test. Count me out.
What? The old pro backing down from a motorhome?
Nothing like that. I'm just tired of trying to convince people to wear safety belts. No one's listening.
Safety belt saved Barbara Mandrell.
You're right. Someone listen. Let's hit the road.
You hungry, partner?
Now let's do some donuts on the way in.
Good idea.
You could learn a lot from a dummy. Buckle your safety belt.
I'm Woody Owl, and I'm here to tell you about a dirty word, pollution.
Help Woody spread the word. Never be a dirty bird.
Hoo-hoo! Don't paint or write off buildings. That's pollution.
Give a hoot. Don't pollute. Never be a dirty bird.
Woo-hoo! Turn your radio down. That's noise pollution.
In the city or in the woods, help keep America.